Henry Callahan. Never meant to propose, not like this. Not to the wrong woman, and certainly not through a missent telegram. But the Oxbow telegraph office had been busier than usual, and he'd been flustered, dust-covered, and running late. When he scribbled that fateful message, he meant to write to his longtime friend Clara, asking her to come out to Willowbend. After years of skirting around their feelings, he figured it was time to settle down, build a home on his newly purchased land, and try his hand at marriage. Nothing fancy, just a simple invitation to join their futures. Except the telegraph operator, half asleep and juggling two conversations, mixed the names. And so the message that read, "Come to Willowbend, marry me. I'm ready if you are," was sent to Grace Whitlock, a schoolteacher from 2 towns over, who had never met Henry Callahan in her life. Grace received it on a Wednesday morning, right before her lessons began. She stared at the telegram, cheeks flushing, as her students giggled at her stunned expression. She knew of Willowbend, knew of Henry Callahan, by reputation a quiet, respected cowboy who worked the northern trails. But she had never so much as shaken his hand. Still, something in that telegram stirred her. Grace had spent years in the same dusty schoolhouse, guiding children through arithmetic and letters, dreaming of a life that felt bigger, freer. A proposal from a stranger should have frightened her. Instead, it awakened something brave in her soul. By sundown, she'd handed in her notice, packed her trunk, and boarded the stagecoach. Destiny or foolishness was pulling her forward. Meanwhile, Henry remained blissfully unaware of the unfolding chaos. He spent his days clearing brush, fixing fence lines, and preparing the small cabin he hoped Clara would approve of. He rehearsed words he'd meant to say years ago. He planned the future down to the porch swing he'd install. 3 days later, the stagecoach rolled into Willowbend. Henry stood by the hitching post, expecting Clara's familiar silhouette. Instead, a woman with auburn curls, bright eyes, and a traveling trunk stepped down gracefully. Their eyes met. Confusion rippled across his face. Hope lit hers. "Henry Callahan?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," he said slowly. "Can I help you?" She held out the telegram with both hands, cheeks warm, but eyes determined. "I've come in answer to your proposal." Henry's jaw dropped, his vision blurred. His heart performed a maneuver no cowboy could name. Oh no. But as she smiled, sweet and tinged, with a spark he'd never seen before, Henry suddenly wasn't so sure it was a mistake. Not anymore. Grace Whitlock had never felt so out of place, and yet so strangely at home as she did, stepping onto Henry Callahan's ranch. The land stretched wide and golden, framed by cottonwoods and distant blue hills. The air carried a scent of sagebrush and horses, a scent she instantly loved. Henry, however, was still trying to recover. "I'm mighty sorry for the confusion," he said, as he helped her down from the stagecoach. "There's been a mix-up. That telegram wasn't meant for you." Grace nodded politely, but her gaze didn't waver. "I understand. But I'm here now, Mr. Callahan, and if you'll allow me a few days, I'd like to understand why fate guided me here." Fate? Henry flinched. He wasn't sure if fate had guided anything, but her calm confidence unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. He loaded her trunk onto the wagon, trying not to stare at her too much. She had an air of gentleness, mixed with quiet courage. Most women would have fainted upon learning the proposal was an accident. Grace simply squared her shoulders and rode with him toward the ranch house. The cabin wasn't ready for company, let alone a bride. A half-built porch, tools scattered in the yard, and the smell of fresh lumber greeted them. Grace, however, saw none of the flaws. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Henry blinked. "It is. It feels like a place where real life happens," she replied. "Not just routines." Her words caught him off guard. Clara always called his projects messy and half-baked. Grace saw them differently. He set her trunk down inside the spare room. "You can stay here until we sort this out." Grace nodded and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "Thank you," and Henry. His name on her lips made something warm move through him. "You don't have to be embarrassed. Mistakes happen. But sometimes mistakes lead us exactly where we're meant to be." He swallowed. For the next few days, Grace watched Henry work the ranch, repairing fences, feeding cattle, tending to the horses. She offered help where she could, though she'd never cleaned a saddle or hauled firewood before. Instead of laughing at her attempts, Henry quietly taught her. He found himself looking forward to her questions. Her presence lightened the long, lonely days. Grace found herself admiring Henry more. With every passing hour, his strength was quiet, his kindness unspoken, his smile rare as rain felt like sunlight. But just as she began to believe destiny had truly brought her here, Clara arrived, riding up the drive, dust swirling behind her, fury on her face. Henry froze. Grace's heart clenched. The mistaken proposal had just become a triangle, and fate was far from finished. Henry felt the air turn heavy the moment Clara slid off her horse, her eyes sharp as cactus spines. "Henry Callahan," she snapped. "What in the world did you mean by sending me a proposal through telegram?" Henry opened his mouth, closed it again. "Clara, about that." Grace stood quietly at the cabin doorway, hands folded in front of her. She felt out of place, awkward, suddenly aware that she was the outsider in a story that wasn't hers. Clara pointed sharply at Grace. "And who is she?" Henry rubbed the back of his neck. "Clara, this is Grace. The telegram, well, it didn't go to you." Clara's face reddened. "You proposed to a stranger." Grace stepped forward, voice gentle but steady. "It was an accident, Miss Clara, but I came because, well, something about it felt important." Clara scoffed. "Important? He was supposed to marry me. Everyone in town knows that." Henry stiffened. "Clara, we were never courting. We were friends." She glared at him. "So you'd rather marry this school teacher who doesn't know a saddle from a stew pot?" Grace flinched, but Henry stepped forward, voice firm. "Don't talk to her like that." The silence after those words was louder than any shout. Clara's eyes widened. "Oh, I see how it is. A mistake arrives on your doorstep, and suddenly she's special." Grace took a slow breath. "Miss Clara, I don't want trouble, truly. But I won't apologize for following what felt right." Henry swallowed hard. He didn't understand everything himself, but he knew one thing: Grace's presence felt like something rare, something gentle he didn't know he'd been missing. Clara huffed angrily. "Fine, choose, right now." Grace froze. Henry looked between them, and for a moment he truly didn't know what to say. Grace lifted her chin. "Henry, you don't owe me anything. If you tell me to leave, I will, but I would like to stay until you're sure." Henry stared at her. Clara demanded certainty. Grace offered patience. He realized which one felt like love. "Clara," he said gently, "you've always deserved someone who wants you the way you deserve. But that isn't me." Her face hardened. "You'll regret this." She mounted her horse and rode away, dust trailing behind her like a storm. When she disappeared beyond the cottonwoods, Henry finally exhaled. Grace stepped beside him, unsure whether to speak. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," he replied softly. "You didn't cause this. My mistake did." Grace looked up at him, eyes shining. "Sometimes mistakes lead us to the truth." He met her gaze and felt something settle inside him: peace, certainty, and a spark that grew warmer every time she smiled. The mix-up wasn't destiny's error. It was destiny's invitation. Life on the ranch took on a new rhythm after Clara's departure. Grace remained, moving through Henry's world with quiet determination. Each day she learned more: how to saddle a horse, how to mend a tear in a fence, how to cook over an outdoor fire when the wind snatched half the heat away. And Henry, who'd always done things alone, found himself loving her company more than his own silence. One morning, as the sun peeked over the hills, Grace joined him in the corral. "Teach me to ride," she said, chin lifted with soft bravery. Henry smiled. "You sure?" "I came all this way," she said. I'd like to see where I landed. He helped her mount his gentlest mare, Willow. His hands brushed her waist. She felt the warmth shoot straight through her. Henry cleared his throat, suddenly aware of how close they were. "Hold the reins like this," he murmured. Grace followed every instruction, her trust in him complete. By the end of the lesson, she was trotting proudly, laughing every time Willow flicked her ears. Henry watched her, heart swelling. She wasn't just learning the ranch, she was becoming part of it. That evening, as the sky shifted to pink and lavender, they sat on the half-built porch. Grace hugged her knees, watching the horizon. "Henry, do you regret it?" she asked softly. "The telegram." He looked at her for a long moment. "No," he said. "I regret not meeting you sooner." Grace's breath caught. "I thought maybe you still wished it had gone to Clara." Henry shook his head. "Clara is a good woman, but she wasn't meant for me." His gaze softened. You came here not knowing me, not knowing what life here would be like. That took more courage than most folks ever show." Grace felt her heart expand. "I came because something told me you needed me. And I think I needed you too." The wind stirred, carrying silence that wasn't awkward at all, just full, warm, and waiting. Henry reached over, gently taking her hand. "Grace Whitlock, whatever brought you here, I'm grateful. More than you know." Her fingers curled around his. They sat like that until the stars came out. Two souls finding the same rhythm, the same breath, the same future. Neither said the word love. They didn't have to. It was already there, blooming like wildflowers after rain. But destiny wasn't finished yet. Grace received a new telegram the next morning from her hometown. Her teaching job wanted her back. And Henry realized, if he didn't act soon, his telegraph bride might slip away. Grace stood on the porch steps, the return to teaching telegram clutched tightly in her hand. She hadn't expected to feel torn. She thought she'd left that life behind the minute she boarded the stagecoach. But suddenly, the decision felt heavy. Henry approached, nerves twisting in his gut. "You leaving?" he asked quietly. Grace swallowed. "They want me back, and I—" Henry stepped closer. "Grace, I don't want to hold you here if you want to go." Her heart ached. "I don't want to disappoint anyone." "Then don't," he whispered. "Choose what you want." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "Henry, what do you want?" He had never been good with fancy words, never been the type to make grand speeches. But this woman deserved truth spoken plainly. "I want you," he said, "not because of a telegram, not because of a mistake, because you walked into my life and made it feel like home." Grace's breath trembled. Henry took her hands, his voice rough with emotion. "And I know life here ain't pretty or easy. But if you stay, I promise, I'll spend every day making sure you never regret it." Grace felt tears gather. Not from sadness, from certainty. "Henry," she whispered, "I never wanted to leave." He exhaled, relief flooding his face. Then Henry dropped to one knee, not rushed, not hesitant, but steady, as though this moment had been waiting for him all along. "Grace Whitlock, will you marry me? Proper this time." Her smile came through tears. Yes, Henry, I will." He rose, gathering her into his arms, spinning her once as laughter spilled between them. The ranch, the hills, the golden sky, all of it felt brighter, as though destiny itself had exhaled in contentment. Later, the folks of Willow Bend gathered for the wedding under the open sky. The preacher joked that most weddings started with courtship, not telegram confusion, but everyone agreed. Some love stories need a little chaos to find their way. Grace kissed Henry under the sunset, becoming Grace Callahan, the telegraph bride who found her forever through a glorious mistake. And as they rode off toward their cabin hand in hand, hearts aligned, Grace whispered, "Sometimes the wrong message leads to the right love." Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.